Hello, hello. Welcome to the Ranch Horse Resource Podcast. I'm Rhonda Van Norman, and I co-host this podcast along with my husband, Ty. This podcast is where we share practical horsemanship, real ranch experience from the Great Basin area of Northern Nevada, and the kind of knowledge that helps you get more out of your experience with your horse. If you'd like to know more about us, you can head on over to ranchhorseresource.com and have a look around. So here's the situation. Everything looks good out in the pasture with your mares. You've got a healthy foal on the ground, up and going. The mare is right there with it, and everything looks right. Then, by the time you come back to check on them a little later, something's not right. Now, you've got one foal, two mares, and a whole lot of commotion. The topic we're talking about today is one of those situations that thankfully doesn't happen in every foaling situation, but when it does, it can turn into a wreck in a real hurry. And it sure pays to know about it ahead of time and be watching out for it. I'm referring to when a mare tries stealing another mare's foal. Let's talk about how often this happens, in what kind of mares, and what can happen if you don't catch it in time. Today, I have my husband Ty and our daughter Anna Van Norman joining me to help break this down in a real practical way. What's actually happening when a mare steals a foal and how to handle it when it does. This is something you'll see more often when mares are run together. Many ranches opt for this style because mares don't often have problems foaling, and it's a good way to keep both time and expense optimized. But even if you're someone who foals your mares out separate, don't tune this out because parts of this still can apply, like understanding mare behavior, the importance of bonding right away, and some examples of what can go wrong in those first few hours. So whether you got a big bunch of mares turned out together in a field or you're foaling out one at a time in a pen, there's something here worth knowing. Now tell us about the time you witnessed the situation where another mare that is not the mother tries to claim the newborn foal.
I was just looking at the mares from the pickup, and I noticed that this one chestnut mare had a colt. It was a dun colt. I was like, okay, that's a new colt. I'll go check it. And then it was later in the day, like in the afternoon, I went out there, and I noticed this sorrel mare had a dun colt, and this sorrel mare was just like running around, just not settling, just kind of being a dingbat. At first, I was like, oh, she must have had a colt too. But then I looked at the other mare that had a colt in that morning, and her colt was not with her. And then I got looking closer, and I was like, oh, that's the colt that goes to that other mare.
So partially you knew because you were keeping track of which mare had which foal, but partially you also knew because there was a lot of extra running around. Is that what clued you in?
Yeah. A lot of running around, and the other mare, she wasn't really like trying aggressively to get her baby back, but you could tell she was just kind of like watching and wanting her baby, like whinnying that her baby was following the other mare. So,
she was paying attention, though, to what that other mare was doing, watching, you said, and sometimes she'd eat some grass, and then she'd go back to try to follow it around a little bit.
Yeah. But that other mare was an older mare, and so she didn't really have a chance to, like, steal her baby back without getting kicked. In the process of me going out there on the four-wheeler, the sorrel mare kind of separated a little bit from the baby and gave the mom a chance to get in there and get her baby. Because when she had her baby, she could protect it. Which I don't necessarily know how she got away from the mom in the first place, but sometimes they lay down and then the mom will go over here to eat.
The importance of checking on them often and knowing what to look for really saved the foal in the situation that you were just telling us about. Ty, can you tell us of another time that you saw this happen?
So another example, I guess, was a maiden mare and an older mare had been mothered up kind of all fall and all winter while they were together in the broodmare bunch. So when that maiden mare foaled, the older mare was right there just in the mix. And somehow, I don't know whether she did it on purpose, but she was pretty aggressive. She had the foal following her and kept whipping off the other mare. Wouldn't let the foal suck, but kept whipping off the other mare. And the maiden mare wasn't sure. She knew she needed to do something, but she wasn't sure what she needed to do. That's sometimes how things work. The maiden mares are not aggressive enough to keep that older mare off or get the older mare worked off. And if the colts got up and decided to follow that older mare, they actually think they belong to that mare too. So it's hard to get them separated.
Ty, does this kind of thing happen very often if it's not prepared for?
I think it's possible. Anytime you have older mares that have foaled before and maiden mares that have never foaled before, you always run the risk of that, in my opinion.
We kind of know that a horse, when it's born, needs to get up and suck within a few hours. But like 6 hours is kind of the outside point, I think. So if you don't kind of catch this right off the bat, you might not have a live foal.
Yeah, for sure. The old mare doesn't want the colt sucking her, so it's always kicking at the colt, but then it's always running the maiden mare off who's trying to get to her colt, if she's any good at all. And in the past experiences, that's usually what's happening, is the old mare's running the maiden mare off. The colt's just following. By the time he got ready to stand and suck, he wants to suck something, so he's just following the old mare, and the old mare got the maiden mare worked off, but she won't let that colt suck. She'll either keep moving or kick at him or something like that. Pretty soon they lose interest. It's like they're getting punished for trying to do what was coming natural.
Yeah, not to mention those horses move a lot when they steal a colt, and they keep that colt moving. And if the horse the young foal hasn't had a chance to get that colostrum in him, its brain probably shuts down a little.
Well, there's lots of things they need to get that in them too, to get their stomach going. And, I'm sure there's a lot more scientific stuff that I don't even know about to just survival there. There's a time frame for all that stuff. And that's one of the ways you can spot it. But usually those horses you'll see two mares doing more than most of the brood mares are. Most of the brood mares will be camped out somewhere, either eating or laying or just lounging around. And you'll see two they just can't stand still. They're dinking around. And if it's really bad, they are running. They're just running around. And that colt's running too. There's always a risk of a leg getting broke off when that thing's kicking at either the maiden mare or the colt itself or something like that.
So is there any other things you can think of that would be a sign that a person might notice that something isn't right?
I would say probably having mares that are mothered up to each other all winter before they foal. Like if you have a maiden mare and an older mare that are kind of mothered up and buddied up sometime before they foal, then there's a good chance that older mare will be around when that maiden mare foals. And if that older mare hasn't foaled, I've never seen it happen if the older mare has a foal on her. And I've never seen a maiden mare steal a foal off of an older mare. More experienced mare, I guess I should say. I have seen that happen too when you have a dominant mare in the herd and a maiden mare foals. Maybe it didn't have the mothered up deal, but a dominant mare will come out of that herd and decide, especially if it's one of the first couple foals of the year, that dominant mare will come out of there. And most all of the mares will come around and kind of check the colt out at times. Most of them don't care, but there'll be one or two that could be the thieves.
So it kind of makes sense, number one, to be checking on them every day and kind of knowing which mares are close to foaling. What are some other things in the line of prevention?
Well, this is what we've done for quite a while now, is we treat them like first calf heifers. Those maiden mares that are going to foal for the first time go either in a different field together or I have a couple big lots here. We just put hay out for them, and we keep them inside and foal them inside. Not in a building, not in a stall, nothing. They're just separate from the older mares. And once they foal, the maiden mares don't seem to fight over the babies like an older mare were. They're curious, but they're not. They don't want to try to. I've never had a maiden mare try to steal another colt off of another maiden mare. And we'll wait till that colt can travel. So maybe week, 2 weeks where that colt's traveling good, and the maiden mare and the foal are a good pair. Then I'll kick them out with the older mares, and most of the time everything will come and check them out. They might run them around a little bit. By then, those two have got a bond that the maiden mare will stick up for him, and that colt will keep looking for her instead of get split off from something else.
Ty, what would you do in a situation where it's already happened? You've got a mare that's stolen a foal, and now you have to clean up the wreck. Give us a sequence of events.
It's best to get them separated, of course. And I always just try to get that maiden mare in a corral or a pen by herself. We have a big cattle scales here that's got a roof on it. And it's been our go-to just to get them. I just lock them on that scales. If I have to pack them water, I will, or feed them in there and get that colt and the mare bonded back. And the worst thing about a maiden mare is that time has lapsed too. So then they're tight bagged, and sometimes they don't want that foal to suck. So we've had to, put a halter on the mare. Our mares are fairly handled. So, and then we got to get the colt back to wanting to try to suck. If you can get a little milk, we've had to milk the mare out, feed the colt on a bottle. Sometimes it takes longer than it. I don't know that we've ever had one that we didn't get to where it was sucking, but. And, they want to suck every 2 hours, and you can't be there every 2 hours, or we can't, but at least as often as we can, we go down there and try to do something. Once they get a little bit of that in their belly and the brain kicks on, they'll try harder to get sucked. We've had some mares that kind of want to be crappy about, the colt sucking, but we've managed to. Oh, I don't know. I've had to rope a hind leg on one and tie her up and rope a hind leg on one, and we had to kind of maul them and just make them get over it, kind of deal. And they've all taken their colts. It's just their bags get sore, and there's really no way around it other than to get the milk either milked off or that colt sucked off. Sometimes it can be a challenge. That's why it's better not to have it happen as far as getting them split up. It's just too much time lapse. Mm-hmm. I mean, we've had maiden mares before foal and then not want the colt, but you don't have that big time lapse a lot of times in there where those colts have been run too. That's the other thing. If the older mare's they've been running and doing all that stuff, then you're dealing with even more stress on that colt.
One other thing I'd like to point out is the importance of making sure the foal actually sucks. Sometimes it can seem like they're sucking. They put their face up there and they nuzzle around. You think that they're getting milk, but they're not actually. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, Ty?
Well, it's like anything else. Just got to pay attention. But yeah, they'll be sucking the side of the bag and not the actual teat. And if anybody's been around mares, they don't have especially a maiden mare, they don't have very big teats. So it's one of those deals where it takes them a while to get latched on, and it's a struggle just to get them. Best thing is to get some milk on there and get them to looking for it, but they eventually get it. They know where they need to be, and it seems like the more you try to force their head somewhere, it's just like trying to suckle a calf. Pretty soon they get dumber, just want you to stand there and feed them. So the more I can encourage them to do it on their own, the better. But there are times, like I said, it's way better if you can get it shut down quicker than time lapse kills you.
If you ever run into a situation like this and maybe you think, something's not right here and I need some help figuring this out, head on over to our website, ranchhorseresource.com, and we've got a few more ways we can help you sort everything out. Also, if you're someone who enjoyed this show and know someone who also might be interested in today's episode, would you please give it a share? I know they will thank you. Thanks for riding along with us on the Ranch Horse Resource Podcast. You can find us wherever podcasts are hosted, so be sure to subscribe, and that way you won't miss anything. Next week, we're going to be talking about some tips for the branding pin, and I don't think you're going to want to miss it. So be sure to tune in next Saturday. See you then.